Also, I've been asked to solve x squared is greater than 3x plus 4. That looks a little bit nasty, doesn't it? Because I've got a greater than symbol. But don't worry, because it behaves in exactly the same way as an equals. So first things first, I want to get everything all on one side. I want to make it look more like a proper quadratic. So the way to do that is I'm going to take away, first of all, 3x from both sides. Take away, first of all, 3x from both sides. So I've got x squared minus 3x is greater than, well, 3x minus 3x is 0. I've still got my 4 on the right-hand side. Okay, I could do a little bit better, though. I just take 4 away from both sides. So I've got everything all together. So I'll end up with x squared minus 3x minus 4 on the left. And that's greater than, what's 4 minus 4? 0, isn't it? 0. So this is now my quadratic that I'm interested in. Now, I've just said it's a quadratic. How do I know it's a quadratic? Well, a quadratic, the highest power of x is 2. So what's the highest power of x in this equation? It's 2. So it is a quadratic. It is a quadratic. Okay, now I've just said that this greater than symbol behaves in exactly the same way as an equals. So why don't I just swap it for an equals? So otherwise I just have x squared minus 3x minus 4 is equal to 0. I'm back on familiar ground. I can deal with that. So I'm going to just pull this over to one side. And I'm going to work with this. So essentially I'm trying to say what values of x in this equation will give me 0. So there's a few ways I could do it. I could complete the square. Does anybody really like completing the square though? I could use the quadratic formula and that will work on any quadratic. That will give me the values of x on any quadratic. But actually the easiest and quickest method is just to see whether it will factorise. Okay, so I set up 2 brackets like this. Remember what I'm looking for. First number that goes in here is going to give me x squared. So the first number in each bracket will give me x squared. So you convinced that x times x will give me x squared? Yeah, so that will give me my x squared. Now, what goes here and what goes here? I'm looking for 2 numbers. But what do those 2 numbers have to do? They have to multiply together to give me minus 4. So multiply to give me minus 4. Okay, and they have to add together to give me my minus 3. So they have to add together to give me my minus 3. Okay, so I would personally start by looking at what are the factors of minus 4. Well, what are the factors of 4 first of all? I've got 2 and 2. I've then got 4 and 1. Okay, but if it's negative, I'm going to have, so it's negative 4, I'm going to have one of those factors being negative, because a negative times a positive equals a negative. So let's first of all make this one negative, okay, and then I could have positive 2, but actually if I make this one negative and this one positive, it doesn't matter because I just end up with the same set of factors, okay. Then if I make this minus 4, then I keep this one positive, okay? But then I could also have 4 and negative 1, couldn't I? So actually, these are the 3 factors that I'm looking for. So let's try these 3 factors in my brackets. So let's first of all put my minus 2 here and my 2 here. That's a positive 2, isn't it? Don't forget that it's a positive. So let's see, does minus 2 and 2 make 4? So multiply them together, that makes minus 4, so that I'm happy with that. Now do they add together to make minus 3? Well, minus 2 plus 2 is 0. No, it doesn't. So I know immediately that factor doesn't work. Okay, let's try my next factor then. So let's try my minus 4 and 1. So I stick a minus 4 here and a positive 1 here. Well, do they multiply together to make minus 4? Yes, they do. What about, do they add together to make minus 3? So minus 4 plus 1. Yeah, that makes 3, isn't it? So immediately, I don't even have to bother with the last factor. I've found what I want. Now, let's just look at this line in a little bit more detail. What I'm saying there is I've got 2 things being multiplied together. Okay, because this bracket will end up being something, some value, okay, and this bracket will end up being some value. So I've just got 2 numbers effectively being multiplied together. And look what it makes. It makes 0. So I'm looking for 2 numbers, which when multiplied together will give me 0. Well, let's just do a quick thought experiment. What does 3 times 0 equal? Well, 3 times 0 equals 0. What does 0 times 3 equal? That still equals 0. What about 5 times 0? Well, 5 times 0 also still gives me 0. So are you happy then that any number multiplied by 0 will always give me 0? So what I can say then is that either x minus 4 will give me 0, so this bracket here gives me 0, or this bracket here will give me 0, so x plus 1 is 0. So either this bracket is 0 or this bracket is 0. Because if I'm multiplying two things together, they make 0. One of them's got to be 0. At least one of them's got to be 0. So let's just rearrange this to find out what the x values are. So rearrange this left equation. If x minus 4 equals 0, are you happy that x must be... It's 4, isn't it? So x must be 4. Okay. What about if I rearrange this right-hand equation? So x plus 1 equals 0. So that means that x must be equal to -1, mustn't it? Okay, so what I've found there is x equals 4 and x equals -1. But what is it that I've actually found there? Well, if I plot my graph, I know that a quadratic graph will look something like that. Okay, where it crosses the x-axis, well, the x-axis is just the line y equals 0, right? So there's my y equals 0 there. So effectively what I've found there is the values of x which cross, where they're the points, they're the roots in which my quadratic crosses the x-axis. So -1 is down here and +4 is over here. Great, I've finished then, haven't I? No, because look at what I had to find first of all. It asked me so this is my graph. This is x squared minus 3x minus 4, so y equals that, okay? And it's asking me, where is that graph positive? Where is that graph positive? Well, are you happy that it's positive in that region there, and it's positive in that region there? Okay, so in other words, it's positive in the region from x is greater than 4, and in the region when x is less than -1. So all of these values is when x is greater than 4, and all of these values is when x is less than -1. Okay? It's not in this region here. It's not this region here. Why isn't it? Because that is where my graph is negative. So I'm just looking for the place where my graph is positive, and that is in everywhere where the x value is greater than 4 and when the x value is less than 1.